Talk about a hard act to follow. Hi, everyone. As a teenager, and by the time I made it to college, I had already stared directly at the barrel of a gun many times, more than I'm comfortable sharing with my mom. It happened not because I did a dumb teenager thing, like stealing something or pulling a prank. It happened because I chose to take an action, a nonviolent one, to stand up for something I deeply believed in, that everybody, no matter who they are, deserve the right to life, dignity, and all the natural rights a human should get. It's a very unreasonable thing to want in my circumstances, but it's something that I did and I believed in and I took actions for over and over. At that age, unlike most teenagers everywhere, I was very passionate, very driven. I was also very good looking, at least in my own head. I also, like most teenagers everywhere, I was very unassuming, inexperienced, and a total idiot who probably should have been eliminated by natural selection long before I made it to college. And I had way too many close encounters with danger. Throughout the first few years of my work and my career as an activist, I had a lot of close calls, close encounters, and each one of them could have been the end of me and could have won me the Darwin Award. But somehow, each of these experiences and close calls also represented a valuable lesson for me, a valuable experience that I could probably not have been able to gain any other way. I learned on the job and through trials and error skills that saved my life, literally. Skill like how to negotiate with a 10-year-old militia member who, despite looking like an angel, would not hesitate to shoot me for just looking at him wrong. I learned also how I need to protect the data that I collect on behalf of the communities I serve, because a lot of nefarious government and actors would love to gain access to such sensitive data. It taught me also the need to work actively to keep myself sane while surrounded by imagery and violence that could easily wreck my mind. I mean, more than that it already did. And I had to teach myself also how the international system worked, how to navigate institutions and power halls where the combination of my name, my age, and my country of birth to the people inside usually represented, the trifecta of immigration threat, not a subject matter expert coming to do some issue education. Getting taken seriously in these spaces was a feat that took me years to learn. I also had to teach myself on the topics that I cover, the work I cover, and the story of my own country that was going at the time through genocide in Sudan. I had to do that. I had to teach myself about the process of hate. I had to teach myself about the Holocaust. And I had to learn all of that from scratch because there was not resources made for people like me or made with people like me in mind who are seeking this kind of knowledge. Not to mention that this kind of knowledge was censored altogether. It might be very accessible to a German student. It's not the same for a Sudanese student trying to seek that kind of knowledge. And all of that was done through trial and error and done through the hard process of, learning on the job, which can be quite messy, quite quite chaotic. And as I gained all these experiences, I also gained a lot of scars, like physical and emotional scars that I still live with today. I certainly wish I did not have to learn that way. I wish there was a training in place that I could take to cut the learning curve and avoid the emotional scars altogether. Now, much older, a lot less handsome than I used to be, with a lot more wrinkles, I was able to fulfill the wish for my young self by building exactly the kind of program and institution that could cut the learning curve for activists who are doing what I used to do right now across Africa and the Middle East. The AMEL Institute is an educational arm of my organization, the African Middle Eastern Leadership Project, designed for activists. Trainings are given by activists who actually lived what they are training on, and cutting and avoiding activists everywhere in 55 countries between Africa and the Middle East, thousands of them, the need to learn on the job and the need to almost die while trying to gain knowledge that could have otherwise be just directly taught. I see my time is running out. I had a lot more to say, but I will end it at this. This institution is my way of saying, how can I be meaningfully there for people, young people, most of them are teenagers, across Africa and the Middle East who are leading the fight for liberty, for democracy all over the region, be it in Iran or in my home country of Sudan. It is these young people who are holding the line for freedom and for democracy and for all the values we stand for. This is my answer for how I can be meaningfully there for them. And I would like to ask all of you, what can you do with the resources you have in your disposal to be there for the ones leading the fight for all of us, for all our freedom across Africa and the Middle East? Thank you so much.
We're not letting you go yet. You can come join me here in the middle, and I'll give you this microphone. So I was struck by a couple of things that you said one about having to absorb, seeing so much violence and the trauma that causes, and also what you were saying about protecting data. And that made me think of something that young people are dealing with across the world today, no matter what type of society they live in, as far as social media, seeing very raw images of violence, and through these sort of addictive algorithms. What do have you started thinking about this and how democracies all over should confront that?
Absolutely. I mean, this overexposure to all this imagery is definitely gonna hurt our souls. People are gonna either turn numb or turn completely overspent emotionally. As part of the trainings we provide for activists working in that intensity and working in that exposure day in and day out is all the mental health techniques that we again, all of us had to learn. Older activists who did not have the luxury of learning this way had to learn on the job how to manage from being subsumed by the PTSD of all the triggers all around them, and how to be, expressive enough not to let depression take over and, a bleak photo of reality become their entire lives. It happens to activists all the time, and again, some of our trainings address exactly that need. I know how to do it for activists, but for the larger population, it's going to be a different kind of challenge, and we have to employ a lot of creative tools to address that.
Mm-hmm. And you're here in the capital of Germany, and it's one of the most powerful countries in the European Union. What would be your top ask to policymakers here and in Europe as far as helping?
Make it easier on activists who are literally holding the line. I look at a place like Sudan, where there is currently the largest humanitarian catastrophe on the planet, where more than 14 million are, displaced by the war, and whose who are the ones like actually providing, filling all that humanitarian gap? It is young democracy activists who are with the median age of 17, who are providing everything from food to shelter to every need for these displaced communities. And they are the only reason why you don't have 1 million people arriving to the shores of Europe. They are the ones holding the line. Make it easier on those young people to move about. I remember how hard it was for me to come and do my briefings in Brussels. Make it easier. Like they are the ones, fighting the good fight. The way to show up to them as a democratic world is to make their life a little bit easier and cut the bureaucracy when it comes to, defenders of human rights and liberty in Africa and the Middle East.
Okay, a clear ask. We'll leave it there. Thank you.